Have you guys noticed the only people that's really going crazy over these bootleg items on TikTok are the so-called Black Americans? Every now and then you may see a white person that's talking about it, talking about how China is exposing these high-end products like purses, Louis Vuitton and Fendi and Nike. Do you honestly believe that they're exposing anything? Now, I must say that they are partially telling the truth. Okay, they're partially telling the truth. But you know who's not complaining and you're not hearing from? Are these high-end stores. You're not hearing from them because they know that what you're being sold is bootleg. It's not real. Now, I used to sell bootleg items a long time ago, long time ago. And I know the difference between the bootleg and the real stuff. So you can tell by the stitching, you can tell by the material, even you can tell by the serial number that's inside, say for example, Louis Vuitton. Now the bootleg Louis Vuittons, they're gonna have a serial number, but it's not gonna be the real serial number. Okay, it's not real. You may have 100 more purses with the same serial number in it, but you think that you got something. And like I mentioned in one of my other videos, I recall you had buyers from like Macy's and from other businesses that would come to the bootleg buildings, right, in Midtown, and they would have their clipboards and they would take orders of certain items, right? And then they would take those bootleg items that already have the labeling on them, Louis Vuitton, Fendi, Coach, and they would take them back to the store and sell them to the so-called Black Americans. Now, the real stuff is being sold to the wealthy. Okay, they got the real stuff, but they're going to let you guys have the habit and think that you really got something on your arm. And I used to have Black females that used to come to me and they just knew that they were professionals, you know. I could tell if this is real, and they look at all in this on the inside of the purse and whatnot. They couldn't tell the difference. Some of them may pretend like they can tell the difference, but they really can't tell the difference. But these people on TikTok are telling partial truth because there are businesses that do buy bootleg stuff and sell them at cost. Okay? It's not real. You're buying bootleg. So that's true. But there's a difference between the bootleg and the official stuff. Do you honestly think that Karl Kani and Coach and Louis Vuitton is going to allow China to expose them like that? And you don't hear nothing from them? Just take a moment to think about it. Now, when it comes to vehicles, okay, and I'm going to get back to that. When it comes to vehicle, when I was overseas, and I think this is where Americans are being ripped off. When I was overseas, when I was in Germany, okay, the taxi cabs, the buses, all of their vehicles were Mercedes, okay? And they were inexpensive. That's why when you find servicemen, dudes in the military that would go overseas and they would get these vehicles and they would have them shipped back, you know, and they're not altered in any kind of way, for example, the speed limit, because those cars are quite fast in Germany, okay, because they get on the Autobahn and they go, okay? When they're brought to America, they have to be kind of toned down a little bit. So you get in the toned down version of the real thing. But the thing about Germany, those Mercedes, they're not expensive in Germany. But when they come to America, you're going to pay out the yin yang for that same vehicle. It's like buying a Kia or a Facilo vehicle, right? And then they send it overseas And overseas, they're getting like twice, double the amount of money for it. Same thing with Mercedes. So I think that's where Americans are being ripped off, because Mercedes in Germany, what you pay for it is not the same as what you would pay for it here in America, and it's toned down. Okay, it's not as fast as it is in Germany. Okay, now back to the bootleg stuff, right? Like I said, you guys are being sold a bill of goods, man, and they know who to target. They're targeting Americans, especially the so-called Black Americans. That's now think about it. You guys are talking about, I'm going to China and I'm going to get this and I'm going to get that. Think of how much you would have to pay, number one, to get to China. And then you got to come back through customs. Do you honestly think custom is going to allow you to bring that back? Okay. I want to throw another thought on you too. And I mentioned this in a prior video. I quickly mentioned it about the smallpox. Remember back in history and how they were able to cancel a lot of Native Americans, put smallpox in blankets? Well, if there's a big tariff war going on between the United States and China, it's not hard for China to, I'm going to say, for example, smallpox. Put smallpox in the shoes, in the purse. You understand? Because now you have so many Americans that's talking about, I'm ordering this from China. So it's not a hard thing for China to put like anthrax or something in the clothing that you guys get, that you buy for your children. And then you wonder why your child is like hacking and coughing and coming down with things and you don't know what it is. All right. This is a real war, a tariff war. And it may end up getting quite violent. Okay. I also mentioned in Vietnam and how the Vietnamese used to drop pamphlets, leaflets, propaganda. And this is what you see on TikTok. A lot of Chinese propaganda. Now, this video might be removed off of TikTok, but it's okay. I'll just upload it to Twitter. And you can follow me on Twitter at FearlessJ2008. FearlessJ2008. So, yeah, so it's just like they can put stuff, anthrax and whatnot, in the clothing and all that good stuff. Oh, I was talking about Vietnam. Yeah, in Vietnam, they dropped leaflets. And to cause divide and conquer, on those leaflets were caricatures of Black Americans. And they would say, Black man, this is not your war. Go home. Go home, Black man. This is not your war. All right? And that was to create dissension or division among the Americans, the Black and the whites, because of what was happening here in America. And we see the same thing now happening, because now you got, Black Americans now coming on TikTok talking about, yeah, Trump, this and that and the other. Yeah, America, this and that. You've been ripping us off. Notice, the only people that's out there talking about this is y'all. You don't hear none of these high-end fashion designers making fun of that. You don't even hear the media talking about this. But it's on TikTok. And they're telling you guys like, oh, the only difference between the original and that is it's going to France and they put the labels on it and they repackage it. Some of that may be true. But there is a difference between the real stuff and the bootleg. I remember I used to buy Rolexes, different types of Rolexes and stuff like that, different watches that were high end, but they were bootleg. And you could tell the difference between the with the sweep, you have that the secondhand sweep, how it moves, and then it's almost like the real one, and then you have the regular watch, but it's got Rolex on it. And we used to sell those things, man. But when I went down to Canal Street, because that's where my connect was, on Canal Street, now out in the front, they would have all the regular stuff, things that the regular people would come and buy. And I walk up and they'll tell me 1 second. They'll take care of one person. Then they take me in the back. There's a door. Now, you may not think there's a door, but there's a door because it's got like, watches and clothes and stuff hanging on it. They take me in the back, right? And they would give me a catalog book, and they would tell me to pick out the watches that I want, the type of watches that I want. Movado, Rolexes, all that. So I would sit there and I would tell them which ones I want. And they would say, okay, come back in about 20 minutes, right? So I'm like, okay, after I package it up, they write it down. I come back in 20 minutes, they have them in a bag. I pay for them, go on about my business, right? See, but yet the people that were buying them, I remember I had a Movado. I was wearing a Movado watch, right? It was nice. It was sweet too. And I was in, what restaurant was it? A Denny's. I was in Denny's. And this white man kept looking at my watch. He said, oh, that's got to be expensive. And I didn't say nothing. I let him think what he wanted to think, right? And he kept looking at it. And he started offering me money for it right now. Hey, I give you, for example, I give you like $500 for it right now. I give you $1,000 for it right now. And I said, nah, man, I'm good. He said, come on. He said, I love that watch because it was one like he's never seen before. Okay. But it looked official. For someone that didn't have a trained eye, they would not know the difference. Okay. Another thing to think about is like when they show you guys these warehouses on TikTok, no warehouse where you get official stuff is going to look like they had stuff piled up, right? And they're talking about, oh, we got to get rid of it now because of the tariff war, and we're going to sell it directly to the public. Come to this website. And you got black people that's taking the bait. The trap has been set, and the mice had taken the cheese. It's sad. It's sad that it's so easy for Americans to turn on their own nation, regardless of what black Americans have went through and regardless of what black Americans are going through. This is your home, right? And if this place is attacked, guess who it's going to affect? And all of that bootleg stuff that you're getting from over in China, I'm sure that you're not going to be showing that off on social media while the bombs are dropping, right? But I'm not going to get into that because I don't want this video to be removed, although it will be removed anyway by TikTok. But just think about it, y'all. Stop being such an easy target or prey. It's so easy for them to prey on you because they know you. See, and notice, they're not offering you guys, you black women, they're not offering you guys discounted hair. All that what they call real hair that you guys be buying in the beauty supply stores? They're not offering you nothing discounted in that, are they? Okay? That's still coming to America. That's being shipped here. But are they offering you that fake hair or that real hair? Think about it. So you guys have to start thinking, man. You buying all this cheap stuff and you're saying, oh, it just don't have the label. It's the same stuff. It's not the same stuff. Trust me. I know bootleg items and it's not the same stuff.